everyone, and welcome to today's webinar from Ciphr, Integrated HR and Payroll, What's Right for You. I'm Catherine, I'm Ciphr's Head of Content, and with me today are Jackie, our Account Development Manager, and John, who's our Payroll Team Leader for Strategic Accounts. Hi Jackie and John, it's great to have you with us today.
Morning, welcome everyone.
Hi everyone.
I just wondered if, while we wait for people to join, Jackie, could you just give me a quick spin through your expertise and how long you've been at Ciphr?
Good morning everyone, I'm Jackie Wyman, Account Development Manager for Ciphr. I've been at Ciphr almost 3 years, but I've been in the HR and the payroll space for about 12. So knowledge in particular specialises around HR and payroll.
Awesome, thanks Jackie. And John, I've actually spelled your name wrong on the slide, so apologies about that. I just changed that this morning, I'm so sorry.
No problem at all.
Tell me about your what you do and what's your role of working with our strategic accounts?
Yeah, sure. So my name is John Lee. I am responsible for looking after the strategic accounts at Ciphr Bureau. I've been working for Ciphr for about 4 years now. And prior to that, I was with Payroll Business Solutions for about 10 years, managing the bureau there. So I've always been either managing the bureau or managing the strategic accounts within the bureau for the last 14 years. So I'll be telling you a bit more about what a bureau is and more specifically what Ciphr Bureau is today.
Awesome, thanks John. And just to note that Payroll Business Solutions, if you've heard of that brand name before, they joined Ciphr 4 years ago, so now that's part of the Ciphr group, the Ciphr family. So let me just take you through today's agenda. I'll just give you a quick introduction to Ciphr before handing over to Jackie to discuss the challenges UK organisations face in setting up and optimising their HR and payroll operations. We'll look at the role of choosing the right technology and also working with an expert provider. We'll also take you through how to sort of the differences between a payroll provider's different services. We'll look at using payroll software, a managed service, an outsourced service, bureau. We'll tell you what all those terms mean in case there's any confusion there. We'll also talk about Paylink. That's how we integrate Ciphr's HR and payroll software so that you have a seamless, efficient service. Jackie and John are here to take your questions at the end, so if you have those at any time, just send them in using the control panel on your screen and we will answer those to the best of our ability at the end. A quick introduction to Ciphr before I hand over to Jackie. Ciphr is a leading UK provider of integrated HR learning, recruitment and payroll solutions. We're trusted by more than 600 organisations working across the UK in a variety of sectors. And if you want to learn more about any of our products or solutions, you can opt in at the end of this webinar to receive more information, or you can visit our website, which is ciphr.com, or you can reach us at info@ciphr.com. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Jackie.
Thank you, Catherine. So just touching on what Catherine edged on there. So Ciphr, as a HR specialist, we date back more than 40 years. And for a period of 10 years, so that we could offer our customers a best of breed payroll solution, we partnered with Payroll Business Solutions. And as Catherine indicated, back in 2019, Ciphr actually purchased Payroll Business Solutions. So they joined the Ciphr family of companies, and we are able to offer our customers a choice of hosted, fully managed or payroll bureau services, all of which we'll cover during the session today. A key part of that relationship with PBS, and now that they're a Ciphr customer, has been the integration. So again, during the session, we'll cover the integration between our HR and payroll solutions. So we're fortunate enough to have kept John. So John came over from PBS. All of our payroll staff are professionally trained. All our bureau services and payroll services are Microsoft tested, HMRC recognised, ISO 27001 and 9001 certified, and we're also a BACS approved bureau. Next slide, please, Catherine. So one of the most crucial responsibilities of everyone on the call today is making sure that its people are paid accurately and on time. And while that might sound straightforward, there are lots of complications and hiccups that can occur along the way that you'll need to handle, resolve and complete every pay run accurately and on time. So during the webinar, we'll help you to address some of the challenges that you face, provide some tips on how to get a service and technology and provider that's the right one for you. Next slide, please. So from pay run to pay run, you'll be coping with various adjustments. So that can include changes to an employee's normal working hours. It might be employees that go on sabbatical leave. It could be family leave, and it might be different to what their usual salary is. You might also have to deal with freelancers, contractors, off-pay working rules, all of those complexities that can result in head scratching and complications and errors when it comes to pension contributions, tax and other legislations, along with compliance and those changes at different times in the year. So lots of things to consider when you're choosing the right payroll option, and it's important to carry out a full assessment of what you actually need as a business. So things to consider is the amount of time that you currently spend on manual processes every payroll run. And it's about having the right qualified and trained staff to make sure that you're going to get it right and that you're going to reduce the amount of errors that you experience. So it's important to identify the kind of payroll errors you have, why they occur, how often they occur. Errors might include inaccurate tax payment, it could be underpayment, late payments, all which can lead to money challenges and impact on how you pay your employees. Your employees all depend on you to get their pay right and get it on time. And if you don't, it very often has impact on their living expenses, maybe mortgage payments, rents, savings. On top of the kind of financial shortfall, it also causes employees an awful lot of stress. That can most definitely affect somebody's attitude to come into work, mental health, and their all-round motivation. So even though it's not immediately apparent, it's really important to consider the impact that payroll errors have on your employees. So finding the errors, that can be as challenging as processing the payroll, and sometimes it can take longer to find the errors than it did to do the original payroll work. So really important to understand. If you have an in-house team, you'll need to make sure that everyone's fully trained. You'll need to make sure that they get the annual updates and any changes to legislation. And it is your responsibility to check that the employee information is correct. Even if you do use a payroll managed software, you still need to make sure that the data's right. So you may decide, or you might currently be outsourcing your payroll if you don't have capacity or expertise in-house to process. The payroll provider that provides your service will conduct all of the payroll tasks, and they will act as your payroll expert. They'll know all the laws, they'll keep abreast of all the legislation changes, and over time they'll get to know you as a business. Most importantly as well, an outsourced service will definitely help to free up your time. That can reduce costs. We'll look at costs later on in the session, and also give you peace of mind that it is actually being done accurately and on time. Another consideration is around the data security. It's something that you'll need to consider for payroll, vitally important. People can steal data if you don't have the correct safeguards in place, and completing payroll manually does leave you vulnerable to fraud, so something else to consider. It's worth thinking about using a HR solution that's integrated with your payroll system. That will create a more secure environment for your people data, and it will also make sure that your information is protected and stored safely. So payroll plays an important part in retaining employees. Errors, as we've already looked at, can contribute to low levels of trust that you as an employer are going to pay them accurately. Maybe a one-off error might be forgivable. Maybe repeated errors, with all the problems that it will cause, can give you a bigger damage. With such easy access to social media, feedback platforms such as Glassdoor, you can't limit what employees actually post on these kind of platforms, and that can actually result, so it's worth considering the impact because negative feedback in those areas can actually affect your ability to employ the right staff. So just kind of think about how your employees are being affected. So in terms of finding the right provider, it depends on the size of your organisation, and it depends on your payroll team. So you want to consider whether you want a standalone and in-house solution, whether you want to go outsource or bureau, and what's best suited for you, and not one size fits all. So the employee data held in HR systems is among some of the most safeguarded data sets, as you'll know. So it will make sense, and we'll look at this further, to integrate your HR and your payroll for that data integrity, and also give your employees access to help support up-to-date data, and the whole combined solution will contribute to being paid accurately, on time, and relevant to an employee's specific contract. Next slide. So it's important to establish, whichever provider you choose, that it's a BACS approved bureau, apologies. So that means they are able to make payments to employees or to HMRC on your behalf without the need for any funds to be transferred over. So that's the approved bureau. Any provider that has this accreditation will have undergone stringent security checks, so you can be more than confident that you're having your payroll outsourced by a reputable outsourcing company. Payroll outsourcing companies should also be able to offer flexibility and extra services, and these might include pensions administration, P11D reporting to HMRC at year end, P45, P60 production. If you go for an in-house and HR, does it grant self-service access to those pay documents, the P60s, P11Ds? And most importantly for employees, can they access those documents anywhere, anytime? And again, we'll look at that later. Pensions auto-enrolment, what functionality does your provider offer here? It's one of the most popular features among the best HR and payroll integrated solutions. So ensure that you take every possible element into consideration when comparing the cost of moving. Think about your total costs, and costs in payroll might not always be immediately evident, so you need to consider monthly or annual costs. Some costs occur at year end and not on a monthly basis. What is the total cost that you pay to your current provider? How many staff are currently involved with processing your payroll? What's the cost of their time, not only running your payroll, but what's the cost of their time spent correcting errors? How much time and money do you spend as an organisation training your staff? What about professional membership costs? So all of those elements need to be considered when you're evaluating the cost and any cost savings when you're thinking about moving to a different payroll provider. The HR system can also be key, because the HR system can act as a single source of truth for all your payroll information. It can also reduce the risk of incorrect information, and of course wrong information causes issues further down the line. With integrated HR and payroll systems, it really does reduce the amount of manual intervention, which again frees up time so that the HR, payroll and the finance team can focus on more kind of strategic business objectives. So also check out the customer support and the communication methods when you're choosing a payroll provider. So consider things such as, do they provide a person at the other end of the phone, or is it a ticket only service? Do they have the same team to work with, or is it a bit more like a call centre environment where you're not quite sure who's going to answer your call? Will you have a dedicated account manager or a customer success manager where you can get familiar and they'll know your payroll? And it's critical to have the right support in a timely manner, and that really is the key to the success of your payroll, because if you've got a query or something's not looking quite right and you're really close to cut off, it's really important that you can get hold of the right people. Moving on to the next slide, thank you. So do an audit at the beginning of the process when you're considering moving. Do a full audit, really important. Although you might already carry out regular reviews with your payroll staff, that might be enough, but it might not always prevent errors. Some mistakes are a bit more fundamental, but conducting a full audit will let you assess your processes. It'll help you identify any opportunities to implement a more effective procedure and really come up with a joint effort how to make it work quicker. You'll need to assess your HR and your payroll systems and practices. Find any elements that are old. What we experience is there's a lot of professional and very experienced payroll professionals that maybe don't kind of review what they do and their processes too often. So it's always a good idea to have a frequency set out where you do actually review what your processes are. Maybe things aren't secure enough, maybe you can do things differently to reduce those errors. So carrying out the audit will just kind of give you a full view of what's the right solution. So in terms of performance, the other thing that's often overlooked for payroll, although they kind of get highlighted when things go wrong, it's really important as a business to actually celebrate success as well. So if consistently payroll's being delivered in time with minimum stress, always kind of highlight that to the team, find out how they did things so well, and absolutely recognise and reward that. So by initiating regular performances and reviews and giving feedback, your payroll team has a chance to improve, celebrate and consistently run, and that actually is a big achievement because at the end of the day that's what their role is. So be proactive about encouraging employees as well. So if you've got a self-service and an integrated HR system, ensure that your employees are going in, maybe through self-service, maybe via managers. Make sure that they're reviewing and amending personal data. Sometimes payroll errors occur because of incorrect employee information. Onboarding might be a classic area where information's gone wrong. So information can be easily rectified. You can use verification and authorization processes. In particular, Ciphr, in our onboarding module, we offer all sorts of mechanisms to make sure data right from the outset is accurate. Things like their name, national insurance number, home address, bank account details, all the kind of data that you can collect ahead of somebody actually joining. It can also include policies. So if a policy is related to pay, that's also something that you might want to include in an onboarding to get ahead of the date so people are paid actually on time when they join. Next slide, Catherine. So understanding the different services, we can provide not only Ciphr, but there's all sorts of different services around. From Ciphr, we can offer you an in-house solution, a bureau solution, or an outsourced solution. So consider all three before you make your decision of which one to choose. And we'll just kind of look at the differences over the next few slides. So the requirement does very much depend on your team. It depends on the in-depth knowledge of how your payroll works, and it's critical that you stay compliant. And the questions to ask is, do you build your own team of experts, or do you outsource and let your outsourced provider be the specialist? So the best option will be depend on you. So in-house versus outsourcing. If you have an internal department that deals with payroll processes of the organisation, your people or employees are paid through the same mechanism that they manage, so they'll have a vested interest in getting it right. So it'll either be probably a little bit of HR, maybe a bit of finance. That's normally where payroll teams sit. Their roles will include preparing and checking payroll data, of course, performing the full calculation before the end of period pay run. The duties will also include making returns to outside bodies like the HMRC, pension providers, courts, as well as making payments and distributing pay advices. So having your own in-house payroll team means that you've got the control and you've got the flexibility to make both any opportune changes and possibly better decisions. Now, if you're thinking an outsourced provider, your organisation will hire a payroll outsourcing company to carry out the payroll function. So this solution will range from a basic service taking on tasks such as liaising with HMRC, maintaining compliance with payroll and employment legislation, all the way through to the full delivery of a payroll service. So a great outsourced payroll service makes you feel that the outsourcer is your own payroll team. And so that will in itself will reduce your own costs and time and give you the peace of mind that you've got the right expertise. You can usually customize the levels of outsourced payroll support that you require. So if you don't want a full service, you can get a lesser service, and John will talk about that in the bureau service. And whether the payroll outsource company is a viable option will depend on the complexity of your payroll. So if you've got a very simple, straightforward salary type payroll, that's one consideration. If you've got lots of changes, lots of additional payments, lots of changes, payroll period on period, that's another consideration as to how much information you need to prep and how you're actually prepping that to send over to the payroll bureau. So the other thing with the bureau and the outsourced service, you don't need to worry about keeping on top of legislation. That will be done for you. So a key element to accuracy of payroll is to ensure a seamless integration with the data from HR. I've touched on it already: bonuses, commissions, overtime, shift payments, all those additionals. It's key that that data moves over into payroll in an accurate fashion, and most importantly, that you've got a good mechanism to check it before it moves over. Ciphr have built a clever mechanism that we call Ciphr Paylink, and that's the interface that will enable you to facilitate, where possible, a single point of data entry between Ciphr HR and then to be processed over into Ciphr Payroll. Next slide, Catherine. So many of the important key factors that we've looked at, including the Ciphr Payroll, which is a key element to accuracy, including downtime, errors and lack of compliance, along with unlimited access. Access into your payroll is critical. It did come to light during COVID for a lot of payroll teams that were in a situation where they had to attend the office to be able to process their payroll. It was classed as a localized system that sat on their own servers, and they had to be in the office to process. That, of course, went against all the rules. So looking at a new payroll, how do you access it? In the situation of Ciphr, can you access it from anywhere with internet connection? Can you process payroll from any location in the world? So that's a key consideration. Integration. So we've got integration between Ciphr HR and Ciphr Payroll. That's called the Ciphr Paylink. That's the interface that will enable you that single point of data entry, seamless integration with all of your information from HR, also a seamless integration with your pension provider and systems, your finance systems, and that can also include other third-party systems such as time and attendance. So seamless integration. Ciphr Payroll also offers a cloud-based, fully integrated option, seamless systems with third-party. We're all on Ciphr Payroll is Microsoft tested, HMRC recognised, ISO 27000 and 9001 certified, and we're also a Baxter approved bureau. Pension auto enrolment is included, so it will run the assessments for you. So whether your employees qualify either on earnings or age, that will flag it to you. And then there's a nice smooth mechanism in Ciphr HR that will enable you to use the mail merge if you need to send correspondence to your employees as well. All your pay documents, they're automatically generated, and you've got options whether you want to email those out or whether you want to have those populated automatically by the system into Ciphr self-service, and that includes pay slips, P60s and P11Ds, so all nice and accessible. And most importantly for your employees, they're accessible from any device. Next slide. So at this point, I'll hand over to John. So John's just going to talk a little bit about a payroll bureau service and what that offers different to running payroll in-house.
Thank you very much, Jackie. So yeah, as Jackie said, I'm just going to talk initially about what a payroll bureau is, and then I'll go on to more specifically the Ciphr payroll bureau. So your typical payroll bureau will enable us to register as your payroll agent. So we'll register as your payroll agent, and that will give us the authority to deal with all HMRC related matters on your behalf. That will also enable us to download tax code notifications and student loan start-stop notifications directly to the software. So our software has the functionality to pull those notifications directly into the employee record, so we don't have to download anything manually from HMRC, and also we're a completely paperless bureau. Obviously, once that's part of the payroll processing, we will submit all monthly submissions to HMRC to make sure our customers are fully compliant in that regard. We can also deduct and pay attachment of earnings, and we can pay those direct to third parties at the same time as we're paying employees directly to their bank account. So as Jackie touched on, most payroll bureaus, or the BACS approved payroll bureaus, will be able to send payments directly from our customer's account to the employee's account via direct credits. So the way that happens is our customers link their SUN, which is a BACS service user number, to our bureau service user number, and then via an authorization process, we can make salary payments and third-party payments directly. The way we receive data is via an API or secure drive, and more specifically via the Paylink, as Jackie also touched on earlier. So there's 3 ways that data generally reaches into a bureau: via a HR system, manual changes, and then direct downloads from HMRC. Typically, once the data is received, then the bureau will provide a set of validation reports back to the customer. So these reports enable the customer to check the payroll processing and an opportunity to identify any potential errors or make any adjustments. And they can be communicated back to the bureau, and then the reports rerun, and that process can be completed until payroll approval. We have, and as most bureaus would have, is a mechanism to approve each monthly payroll. So in our case, we have an online module called MyPay, and that gives the designated approver ability to log in and approve the monthly BACS total for the period. Once the payroll's been approved, then that is the bureau's authority to proceed to BACS, to publish pay slips, and then to send all submissions to HMRC. There's also year-end tasks involved, annual cycles, P60s, P11Ds, and those forms can also be delivered electronically and published for the employee to access easily. Reporting to HMRC is now done by RTI and has been now for several years, so it's a much more efficient way of reporting the payroll cycle to HMRC, whereas in the past it would be an annual return. Each submission is made now after each payroll cycle, so that gives HMRC real-time picture of what's happening with the company and also individuals' tax affairs. Pension auto-enrolment now forms a huge part of the payroll process. So since the changes around legislation and pensions maybe 6 or 7 years ago, where companies are now obliged to put employees into pension schemes, that has impacted the payroll process considerably, and also how bureaus function. So that is a main part of the offering, and is included in the payroll calculation. So as part of the payroll cycle, a calculation will be run, assessment done, and the employees are categorized based on their age and earnings. And if they're eligible, they'll be put into the pension scheme. Once the pension deductions have been calculated and processed through the payroll, then we also are responsible, or can be responsible, for making submissions to the pension providers. So there will be monthly returns, normally consisting of a contributions file and also a new starters file, which is uploaded to the pensions provider. And most bureaus will deal with the main pension providers, and there'll be a standard export, a standard template, which is used after each payroll cycle to report the pension deductions. Slide, please. Okay, so why choose Ciphr Payroll Bureau? So I've outlined the main functions of the bureau on the previous slide, but just more specifically what we do at Ciphr. Then I want to give you a little bit more information about the volumes of payrolls that we process, the service that we offer, and just give you a bit more insight of what we do specifically. So we are a BACS approved bureau, and we have been for over 10 years. And that gives us the authority to send payments directly from customer accounts, and that means we don't have any funds sitting in our bank account at any time. That's useful in terms of complying with money laundering regulations, but it also means there's less work in terms of transferring funds from one account to the other. And it also means that during the payroll cycle, which is typically quite a tight time period and a quick turnaround, there's less need to send or to make more transactions. So it's a more efficient way of paying employees. As a BACS approved bureau, we're audited by BACS every 3 years, and that's quite an in-depth audit, and that just makes sure all our internal procedures are compliant. And as you can imagine, with the volume of BACS that we're processing and just the BACS process itself, there's quite a lot of checks in place to make sure that we're compliant in that regard. We've successfully completed all our BACS audits in the past, and we're due one very soon, I think. So at the moment in the Ciphr Bureau, we have around 170 customers, and that figure is growing each month. When I first started working at Payroll Business Solutions, it was just myself in the bureau. That increased to about 10 people about 4 years ago, and then following the acquisition from Ciphr of Payroll Business Solutions, we now have about 20 employees in the bureau. So we're growing and we continue to grow. The 170 customers equate to around 280 payrolls each month. So we'll have some customers with multiple payrolls. And as Jackie mentioned earlier, the service that we provide can be tailored to suit a particular customer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So to give you some idea of the volume of BACS transactions that we process each month. Now this slide actually says over 100 million, but it's closer to 170 million now each month. So we're talking about £2 billion worth of BACS transactions each year. We're diverse in terms of our customer base in size and sector, so we don't have any particular type of customer. That have very varied, all from all different sectors, and they vary in terms of size as well. So our most common size would be around 300 to 500. Our largest customer is around 2,500, and we have some smaller customers around 100 employees. We offer a tailored bureau service. So the main type of service that we offer is a fully managed service where we are effectively the customer's payroll department, but there also has been some requirements to provide a more traditional bureau service where we're just sending BACS, or we're providing online payslips and P60s, P11Ds, that type of thing. But normally and more recently, we are providing fully managed services where we are covering all aspects of the payroll function. We have dedicated trained payroll professionals. So the bureau department is made up of 3 teams. Within those teams, you have 5 to 6 employees, and I would think over half our employees have got some kind of payroll qualification. The way we work is that each person in the bureau department has their own portfolio of customers, and that way we build up a partnership with the customer. So the person in the bureau who is responsible for running the payroll will be running the payroll each month. There'll be a buddy, a backup in case of sickness or absence, but there'll always be the same person who will be contactable directly. So our customers can contact their payroll professional directly by phone or email and be confident that they'll get a response in a good, timely fashion. We also work closely in the Bureau with the Ciphr implementation and support team. So during the implementation process, typically the Bureau administrator or the payroll administrator from the Bureau will work closely with the implementation team. And we find that useful because it means that whoever's going to be responsible for running the payroll going forward has an opportunity to get to know the payroll and also to get to know the customer and the people working at the customer side. So we're very much customer focused and we look on it as a partnership. So we understand what we're doing is important. The responsibility is large in terms of having to pay people accurately on time. And we understand this is a very precious thing that's being handed over to us. We want to get that right from the beginning, and that includes the implementation as well. So I mentioned auto enrollment and pension interface management. So most bureaus will offer this service, but it's something that we have a really nice solution for in terms of the automation of it. So the payroll calculation will automatically assess and categorize the individuals, and we're able to run monthly pension exports, which are then uploaded into the various pension providers. So that includes teachers' pension, LGPS, and private pensions as well. We use our own software in the Bureau, which means that we can tailor reports, create bespoke reporting for our customers' needs. And it also means that if there's any specific customer requirements, we have the in-house expertise to update the software and provide that required service. Year-end processing, again, as you would expect from a bureau, P60s are run each year, submissions made to HMRC marked as final submissions. P60s are uploaded into the employee portal as well, so the employees can access P60s in the same place as their payslips are. We also provide a P11D service, so P11Ds by their nature are something that falls outside of the payroll monthly payroll cycle, and we have a third-party software that we use to process our customer P11Ds. We have seen a trend for customers to move over to payroll benefits, but that has slightly impacted the volume of P11Ds that we do. But last year we did 10,000 P11Ds in the department. So that's a big task for us and something that our customers are happy for us to do. That's it on that slide. And this slide I just wanted to show to you because it gives you an idea of the Bureau growth over the last 3 years. And it's a graph showing the total monthly BACS transactions. So you can see there, June 20, we were about 90 million. And more recently, we're running around 160 to 170 million pounds worth of BACS each month. So it's a large volume of BACS, and it's a good barometer of how busy we are and how the department is growing over the last few years. If you take that graph back a few more years, then it will be 10, 20 million. You can see there's a couple of spikes in that graph, which is generally around year end. So in April, March, April, there's some larger payments going through, bonuses and year end payments, that kind of thing. So, but as you can see, the overall trend is up, which means in the last, well, 3 and a bit years, we've almost doubled in terms of the BACS submission volumes we're sending, which means our customer base has almost doubled as well. Okay, I think that's the last slide from me.
Thank you, John. So I just wanted to touch on, both John and I have referred several times to what we call Paylink. So Paylink is a function that sits in Ciphr HR, and this enables the collection of payroll related data. So in the scenario of customers using Ciphr HR, it collects the data, produces regular output files, reports can be submitted directly over to the payroll solution. In the scenario where you might have Ciphr HR and you're running what we call a universal Paylink, because you're using non-Ciphr payroll, maybe a service or an outsource provider, we'll actually configure what we call a universal Paylink output. So you can take data changes out of Ciphr HR and they can then be used and input into third parties. So any kind of that data generally includes out of your HR changes such as starters, leavers, job and pay changes. You might have a whole range of allowances and payments, bonuses, commissions, overtime, shift payments. They're all output in the Paylink mechanism. If you have requirements for anything outside of those standard data fields, then we can actually configure those according to individual client requirements. Paylink gives you a dashboard, so you can see the visibility of how your payroll is processing. The Paylink is the mechanism in the case of Ciphr HR and self-service, where we push those pay-related documents, the P60s, the pay slips, directly into self-service. And either the Paylink or the universal Paylink, whether you're using Ciphr products or not, it can also integrate and output information, input and output information from workforce management systems, pension providers, finance systems. And another key area of the Paylink is it does allow you to run multi-post employees, and it will also allow you to run multiple payrolls all at the same time. So just to recap before we finish and take questions. So considerations for payroll to consider carefully before you make a decision to move. Establish the areas that you as a business want to improve. Find a provider that's got a choice of technology, the right expertise, the right accreditation and the right security. Decide whether an integrated system with HR and payroll is right for you. Make sure you choose the right service, whether you want to run it in-house, whether you want to try a bureau, or whether you want to go for a fully managed outsourced service, and get the option right, and you'll get great returns for both your payroll team, the business, and ultimately the employees, because they're paid on time, every time, and correctly. So yeah, we'll take any questions.
Thanks so much, Jackie and John. Yeah, that was a very thorough look at all of our payroll offering. I feel like I've learned a lot. If you have any questions, now is the time to send them in. You can do that using the question control panel that you see on your screen now. But if there aren't any questions, then we won't keep you too much longer. We'll let you have some time back for your day. I guess one of the questions I wanted to put to you, Jackie and John, is like some of the reservations people might have about switching their payroll service. I think people tend to be a little bit more hesitant about switching to a new payroll provider rather than maybe an HR software provider, which seems less daunting and almost less profound change. Jackie, what are some of the reservations that you see people sharing with us, and how can we mitigate those?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Catherine. So when a new customer to Ciphr chooses to move over to whether it's Ciphr HR, payroll, or whether it's just payroll, the first thing we do is we kind of scope out the world that you're in now. We understand the kind of what a standard payroll run looks like for you. We spend a considerable amount of time scoping out those kind of variances every payroll run. And then we start to bring over all of that information. So we do what we call a data transfer. We bring all of your pay elements on an employee by employee basis over into Ciphr payroll. So every employee will have the right elements assigned. We also carry over all those year-to-date payments. So it doesn't really matter at what point in a financial year you choose to move payroll. We have a lot of customers that feel comfortable to move and run from April the 1st. It doesn't have to be that way. We just transfer your year-to-date. And then once we've got your pay elements, your employees, and the year-to-date data, then we start to do 2 parallel runs. And once we're happy and the second parallel run, we've actually ironed out any anomalies, then we'll go live with your third run. And it's at that point that you'll leave your existing provider and be fully in the Ciphr payroll world.
Yeah, great, thanks, Jackie. Is there anything to add from your perspective, John, of like moving particularly to a bureau service?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackie mentioned the fact that we do 2 parallel runs, and they're key because, you know, we won't go live until those parallel runs have been signed off, and that gives us an opportunity to test what we're doing against the previous calculations. So that's important, and there's plenty of it's fully scoped out, and I think during that implementation process, the communication is key. We understand what we're taking on is a precious thing, and we want to provide as much reassurance as possible. And we also find that our potentially new customers like to hear some testimonials from existing customers, so that forms part of the process as well.
Brilliant, thank you. A question from Samantha for you, John. Is there a minimum number of employees to have on a pay run to use the payroll bureau service? I know you mentioned that you have varying numbers of employees on your bureau services.
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, the process is the same. Typically, you know, most of our customers are over 100 employees, and you know, typically they're probably on average around 300 to 400, but we do have much bigger payrolls. It's more complexity that you know, you might have a smaller payroll that's more complex, that might take longer. You might have a larger payroll that's slightly less complex and more people, which might take the same amount of time. So the system is scalable, and it doesn't really matter to us too much in terms of size. We can apply the same process.
Amazing, thanks, John. A question, I guess, Jackie, for you. What about the universal pay links? I'm going to ask if specifically is Ciphr HR compatible with more pay?
Yeah, so more pay is one that we're used to outputting for. So if your desire is to move to Ciphr HR, for instance, and you want to retain the more pay service, we've got experience and we've already created that output, so we can share that with you during the discussions during the scope of the project. So yeah, more pay is one that we're already producing the output for.
Okay, fantastic. And for people who might be like using our HR software but using like FTP to transfer payroll information, or not actually having that fully integrated solution, like Jackie, like what's your one killer reason for like moving over to a fully integrated option?
It's got to be a single source of truth. So I meet a lot of payroll and HR teams together. HR rely on payroll to provide accurate reports. So if HR were to run a report and payroll were to run the same report that might be relating to someone's pay, the two teams could get different results. So the advantage, and particularly in the Ciphr world, it's a single source of truth. All the data is consistent, and the other big one is if HR have entered something, payroll don't need to duplicate it, because this movement of data makes sure that it's just a single source of the truth. It's just one data entry, and everyone can run the same reports with the same results.
Awesome, thanks, Jackie. And John, any particular closing thoughts from you on the usefulness of the bureau team in particular?
The bureau team?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things maybe a bit underappreciated, how much the scope of the work that you guys can provide.
I think that's always the way with payroll, isn't it? So you kind of go about your job and you only hear about payroll if something goes wrong, which we hope doesn't happen too often, but it's true. I mean, it can be quite complex. All companies need a payroll department or have to pay their employees. So whether that's in-house or bureau, it's an essential part of each company. So regardless of size or complexity, as I say, it has to happen. You have to pay employees, so it's important, and it does feel like sometimes you're underappreciated, but there's also the challenge of keeping up with latest legislation, statutory changes as well. So there's a lot going on, and particularly we talked about pensions. That forms a big part of payroll now. Maybe not in the past, that wouldn't have been so much. So these things are constantly added, so it can be challenging, but also very rewarding.
Brilliant, thanks so much. That's all the questions that have come in so far. If you have any questions after the broadcast, you can reach us at info@ciphr.com. If you'd like to learn more about Ciphr's HR and payroll solutions, you can opt in using the exit form that you'll see when this broadcast ends. I forgot to mention that if you're watching live, this recording will be emailed to you later today, so you can take another look through any of the content that you might want to revisit. So it's just left for me to say thank you, Jackie and John, for sharing your expertise. Great to have you with us today. Thanks to everyone for being so attentive and sending in your questions. And we really hope you found this broadcast useful and that you'll join us again for another Ciphr webinar soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.